to this very interesting webinar about people and skills development. Why to invest in people? Why to invest in skills? I think this has been probably a question that have been in the back burner for a couple of months, because the last 18 months, because of the pandemic, because of the measures against the pandemic, but it has shown another side, another face of our working environment. I think the pandemic, and this is the reason why we are launching this seminar, has shown how important the people are, how dramatic the changes have been, and that not only the companies, but as well the people in the companies have to adapt. Welcome to this webinar. I'm Manfred Rist, the moderator for this session. I'm currently based in Switzerland. I'm the Southeast Asia correspondent of Neue Zürcher Zeitung from Singapore and in Singapore. I'm honored to welcome Stanislav from Acronis. He is a co-founder and the president of technological development of the company. Then Shija from a well-known Swiss company, Givaudan. Now she's in a unique position as well to give us some insights, because she is centrally placed in the HR department of Givaudan, and as we just learned, she will soon be moving to Switzerland and taking another responsibility in the HR area. Then, of course, Peggy from SkillsFuture, representing Singapore in a way, representing the Singapore institutions and the Singapore approach in, let me say that way, catching up with skills and the people development. Last but not least, of course, Fabienne Enderlin, co-chairman of the Swiss Chamber of Commerce, who has been taking a leading role in developing the 2 awards that Swiss Cham is offering. Now, without further ado, I'd like to hand over quickly to you, Fabienne, and say a few words before we then kickstart the session.
Thank you very much, Manfred. It is my pleasure today to welcome all of you. I heard we have over 100 people registered, so I feel very, very humbled for that attention. I also feel honored being able to be the host of today's webinar in the name of Swiss Cham of Singapore as a vice chairman. And as already Manfred mentioned, as part of the team who's working for the Swiss Cham Business and Excellence Awards, which is the Digital Transformation Award, as well as the People Skills and Development Award. I'm very much looking forward to an exciting and interesting discussion today. But first, I would like to talk a little bit more about the award and share some more details. Maybe we can have a look into the next slide. So, as hopefully many of you know, this year's award is already the 5th time we are running the award, the People Skills and Development Award in Singapore, and we are very proud. Manfred was part of it from the very beginning, and we have seen a lot of success, a lot of good stories. We got to know many companies who investing a lot into their employees, into their people and skills, and we are proud that we can run this for the 5th time. Personally, I'm even more proud to say that we went with the time, not pioneering as such, but this is also the very first webinar for the People Skills Award. So compared to the past, where we had more roundtables, this year we also run a webinar, and I think it's really great opportunity, and I believe that the huge interest shows we're on the right track and it is an important topic. So there's a lot of information on the homepage, but here are a few details. Obviously, first, what to do. You can submit your application for your company until the 12th of September. There is a clear instruction what you need to submit. If you have any question, you can reach out. There will be a jury who is going to assess and review all applications. The jury consists of several individuals from business, from academic background, from universities, as well as from SkillsFuture. So it's a diverse group of experts who is going to assess the applications and will also give a feedback for the winners as well, all participants. So which companies are eligible for the People and Skills Development Award? Actually all companies in Singapore, no matter the size, no matter the industry, no matter how many employees you have, how far you are in your people and skills development. We believe that all what you're doing, if a very big initiative or you just started, it's worth to showcase. So please feel free and apply. It is about showcasing what you have done and why you believe it's important. So what are the benefits for the winners? Obviously, it's also employer branding. It hopefully will help, and in the past it has shown that it does help to develop your employer brand. It is going to recognize your people efforts in general, but as well in these very challenging times. Not only challenging because of the pandemic, but with all what it comes with, let's say border restrictions, let's say war of talent. So it can really eventually accelerate your visibility. And obviously throughout the community, it will give access to new networks and new customers eventually, and employees. Next slide, please. So here you have a list again of why you should join the award. I could give you some time, but again, I believe from the bottom of my heart that it is an accelerator. It is good to showcase what you as a company or your employer is doing. It is the option or the opportunity for your team, for your HR team, or whatever you call it, what they have been doing, what they have invested, what the management is thinking. So I believe it is very, it has different parameters and different angles, why you should and what the benefits are. After all, we go through this together. We have different challenges. So please feel free again, do submit your application. I think it's a great chance. It's also a sign for your employees and a chance to celebrate. If you have any questions, you have here the contact of our office management and event managers, which is Clarissa and Fili. You can also reach out anytime to myself. You can find all the details on the homepage. And on the next slide, we can share some pictures. We don't have the time for movies, but here you can see the past 4 winners, which last year winners was Acronis. And we are very happy to have Acronis today on the panelists. Stas, thank you very much for making the time. Very much appreciate. I hope, Stas, you can share a little bit what the award has done for you and why you submitted your application. And also the former winners like Bertie, Marche, Freemanich. I believe it's really showing very different industries, different professions behind, etc. So yeah, it is an award for all companies in Singapore. Lastly, I would like to say thank you very much to Peggy and SkillsFuture, who are partnering with this award, who are doing so much in Singapore to strengthen the workforce and to help companies. And we believe that there's much more we can do. And we would like to help SkillsFuture to spread the word, to give the access to all companies. And therefore really happy to have Peggy here and partnering again with SkillsFuture. Thank you very much. And let's start. I'm very excited. Manfred, you're on mute.
Yes. Thank you very much, Fabienne, for that introduction. I'd like to share with you a short encounter I had yesterday during a dinner with a colleague of mine who is a Swiss entrepreneur. He has a small company, 15 people. And I asked him, I asked him straight away, now what has changed for you? What did you miss in the past 18 months in these, in this kind of new environment when it comes to dealing with your people? And his answer was quite surprising. He told me, well, you know what I miss most? I miss to be able to read the body language of my employees during sessions, not only during sessions, as well throughout the days. Because when we have team meetings, when they work from home, I can see them, I can hear them, but I cannot really feel them. Now, I think that's quite an astonishing answer. I like it very much. And on that note, I'd like to play the ball straight into our panel, to our panelists, in particular to Shisha. Shisha, you have been, your company is, it's a worldwide, it's a company that is operating worldwide, many thousand people. And how does an HR department, or how does a company like Givaudan deal with these kind of new restrictions? I ask you for a short answer because I'd like to hear from the other panelists as well. And then later we can come back to the question on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Manfred. So yes, I'll try to keep the answer brief. And as you mentioned, I think what COVID did was definitely a forced pilot, a work from home scenario for all of us, right? We started to think it's going to last for weeks. Weeks became months. Months has now become more close to a year and more. So clearly it was not that the people were prepared for, and that's where we had to quickly pivot to a new reality. And to your question, how are we responding to it? Clearly, our business is all about bringing together the energy, the collaboration, and creativity. So we couldn't necessarily do that from a face-to-face situation. So our other way to do was, how can we really try to create the human touch while we have to still go the high-tech way? So it was really about ensuring that we communicate. HR had a big role in terms of not only acting as a caretaker, but also stepping up as a collaborator, bringing together the teams. And if you ask me, I think there's a lot around leveraging technology and in a way saying, yes, I miss the energy, but I can at least see you. I may not necessarily have the full eye contact, but I still get to see you and I'm still able to give all attention. And there's been a lot of leaders leading the conversations, accepting that, yes, we are not exactly in the best space, but it's fine, we will get through this together. So I would say there have been some other quick ways how we've been able to deal with it. And I always believe employee resilience will always surprise you. It has done, and we help us to stay strong.
Thank you very much. Now, Peggy, from SkillsFuture. Singapore is a smart country. So maybe your institution, your government, they must have foreseen what's coming up, right? I mean, they have been early, they have reacted very early in the pandemic, a year and a half ago, 18 months ago. And still, the crisis have been lingering on. It was a sneaky development, wasn't it? I mean, people are thinking, oh, home office, that's fun, the first week. The second week, they probably got used to it. And the third week or the fourth week, we started to ask ourselves questions. Well, what's the point of going back to the office? What were your observations? Because you have been you're in the middle of skills and people development as well. Your thoughts about that, please.
Yeah, thanks, Manfred. I just want to say that, I mean, first of all, COVID definitely has made us all very strange creatures. I mean, I'm now in a webinar delivering it from my bedroom. You can't see the background, right? And I think to she just point about and Manfred's your point about body language. I wish I could see the audience, but we couldn't, so we can't even also see your body language, right? Whether we're boring you or whether we're exciting you, we can't see, right? We hope we are exciting you. I just want to say from SkillsFuture perspective, or rather from my own personal perspective, there are always two perspectives, because I am also a manager, a people manager. But I also carry on my core function, which is taking care of enterprises, making sure they understand what the government can do for them in terms of skills training and development. And COVID hit, and suddenly the way you engage the companies has to change, which means we have to spend a lot more effort communicating. I think for most of you here, it's about communicating with your workforce, your colleagues, to make sure that they're engaged. And mentally they are well, but for us, I mean, that's what I have to do as a manager. So we've been recruiting, and there was one chance, I think, when there was a relaxation and we were able to meet people. I couldn't even recognize my new colleague from the back because I've never seen her in real person. So that was a very heartwarming encounter that I actually got to see new colleagues, right? For our role as SkillsFuture Singapore, we do recognize that actually the human touch still remains very important. And that's the reason why we partner with chambers and trade associations like the Swiss Cham, because it is still very important that even though it's virtualized, we still have to keep in contact with the enterprises, and particularly so during the pandemic period. So I wouldn't share about on the policy front what has been done, because we roll out a lot of measures to save jobs, to help people to continue to train. We've converted a lot of our programs to online as much as possible. So at ecosystem level, I think the government has tried our best. Where we have the stabilizers and we could convert them quickly, we did that. But we will still need to communicate and let people know that we're there for them and what these various initiatives means. And this is where I want to thank Fabian and the team for this close collaboration that we have. And this award definitely, as what Fabian has said, it's a time to celebrate. Last year was a difficult year. It's a difficult year for all of us. So have a pat on your shoulder, apply to the award. It means a lot to you. It means a lot to your staff as well.
Great,
yeah.
Great,
Thanks.
Yep. Okay, I heard of people, they have been employed through a team session. They got a job in a new company through a team session. And then they spent the first days, the first weeks, and the first months without never, setting foot in that company. How you keep people on board, how you keep them motivated, Stanislav. This must have been the case in many companies. You employ them, you have a new job offer, right? You select one through interviews, and then in a lockup, in a lockdown situation, you cannot open, the company. So they work from home without knowing anyone. How do you deal with that, Stanislav?
Yeah, that's actually a serious problem. And not only for new employees, even for existing employees, because you're absolutely right. Social part of our jobs somehow got away, right? I mean, you could not go for a lunch with your colleagues. You could not just chat over the coffee point and things like that. And we are social people. I mean, we are social creatures. We need to communicate with each other. And that became the major problem. I think moving from technology point of view were reasonably easy for most of the companies. I mean, like 92% of the companies introduce new technological solution to support this hybrid and virtual work. And for most of the companies, it went relatively smooth. But people part of our companies, our business, indeed created new challenges. Because I mean, the most popular question which we receive through our town halls and virtual meetings, which we do for all our employees in all our offices, and we have offices in more than 30 countries. The most popular question: when I can see my colleagues? Quite simple. people need to interact with each other. And you can do a lot. Definitely, like you can show your people that you care about them, starting from small care packs, sending masks, sanitizers, some nice gifts, and things like that. And people do appreciate it. And also helping them with difficult life situations. Like many of us has kids, and when kids are also stuck at home, basically you need to think how to get them engaged. We organized many activities for kids, coding school, also chess school and things like that. And people do appreciate it. But unfortunately, eventually they still need to get together. And I hope that quite soon in many countries, we will be able to start working in hybrid mode. And I think that close to 80 or 90% of employees, according to various sources, would prefer to work in hybrid mode, which means that part of the week working from home and part of the week working from the office.
Okay, hybrid. I think that's the buzzword in a way. Hybrid work form of works. Now, Shija, how does that look in the reality at Givaudan? What does it mean, hybrid form? Does it mean 40% office, 60% home office? What's the reality?
Yeah, so I don't know if I've got any Givaudan team members on the call today, because this is definitely a question that we are together finding the right answer for. So to your point, yes, a hybrid model is what we go forward and see. But what works for which set of team members is a lot dependent on what's the kind of a role that they would have. So for me, I think the guiding principle is, yes, we need to bring in the flexibility because we have tested it, tried it, and it works. But whether it can be 20%, 40%, 60%, it has a lot to do with the roles that we have. So if I look at my operations or my creative team members who are really working together in creating the solutions for customers on application technology, I don't believe we will be able to give them like 100% or a 20% or a 30% from home per se. So those are some of the people that we are trying to test out with at least 1 day a week to start with when we are getting them back. And there are, of course, other functions where, in a way, we are questioning why do they need to be in office? They can do the work remotely, especially some roles, including some of the regional and global roles, which at times can be done remotely. And then you don't need to have a dedicated office and block spaces. So I think it's a hybrid model, and it's going to be an element determining what's the role, what's the impact on the team, and because it has an impact on you as well as on the team. And how can we ensure business continuity while focusing the employee well-being? So I don't think I have a perfect answer to it, but I would just say it would range by the role that we have. But as a philosophy, we believe it's there to stay.
Now, I'd like to throw in a question to all 3 or 4 panelists. Fabienne, maybe you could say something about that as well. Let's say pilots, right? Airline pilots. It's difficult for them to work remotely, right? So the hybrid model probably doesn't work. Other companies and other jobs, they are probably more suitable to this kind of flexible work scheme. But what about inspiration, right? What about passion that is needed at work? What about creativity that is needed at work? That often is a result of teamwork, right? So how have the new restrictions impacted these kind of elements, these kind of important parts of our working elements. Just maybe a quick answer from any of you. Fabian, you're in HR as well. Your thoughts about that?
Yeah.
Your experience about that?
Yes, sure. Happy to do so. So in my role of a Chief People Officer for Zilke Asia, I'm heading the HR for Singapore, Hong Kong, and Vietnam. And personally, within Zilke, I have experienced it extremely positive. I felt that the remote approach has initiated or strengthened the creativity and flexibility. Many points were already mentioned. I believe that our people have so quickly adapted. They became so creative to organize their work in whatever roles because we all didn't know. It was not that we as people manager or HR or management in general told or were even able to tell the employees what exactly they have to do and how they shall now organize their work. It somehow just happened. So I believe that people took over responsibility, ownership of their work. So what we have been preaching for years, giving the trust and giving that ownership to the people, that happened. And I believe that trust most of the employees felt that actually accelerated the creativity and the innovation to organize themselves, that accelerated the flexibility in both ways. So yes, it is remote work, but it's just not just the workplace, it's also the working hours. As Stas mentioned, people are having children at home. 2 years ago, that would have been so difficult, and the acceptance in the working world so badly. And now, we shift meetings and we start earlier, we work late. It doesn't matter that much anymore. First of all, we trust our employees that they manage themselves. And I believe that is such a boost to the confidence of people. And I believe confidence as such is a boost to creativity. And if we talk about innovation, we just had to, right? And I also believe, again, this is the biggest driver for innovation. If you have to, then you get creative and you start to innovate. And at least for myself, this is what I have seen over the past 18 months. People got very innovative in order to bond, to meet, to create together without that anyone had to tell them. So I personally found it was a very good experience.
Okay, Fabian, thanks. Well, to me, that sounds extremely positive. Almost too good to be true, because creativity and passion is as well. That's the result of teamwork as well. Now, I'm happy that you made this experience, but are there any other, for my company, for instance, I couldn't come in with such good results. It's a different field, but first I'd like to give the floor to any other of the panelists to say a few words on this.
Okay, if that sounded too positive, let me be too negative. You see, actually, the problem here is quite simple. When we got into the lockdown, definitely it was kind of shock for all of us. And indeed, people started working creatively, trying to kind of move our work environment into virtual world, right? But unfortunately, people are getting tired. And in many companies, in many teams, I hear like people start feeling they are not part of the team anymore, right? It's like artificial intelligence giving them some task to complete, and that's it. And in return, they're getting their monthly paycheck. And that's actually killing the motivation. And when motivation is dead, creativity is also dead. And this is where the role of HR department, HR practices, and management practices are becoming extremely important. And I'm afraid the next challenge for many of the companies would be exactly to overcome this tiredness and this exhaustingness of people and employees. And I don't have a good answer how to do it. We are doing whatever we can, and actually participating in Swiss Charm Award is one way to learn what other people do in that regard.
I see, thanks. Now, Shisha, I have a challenging question for you.
Okay. Seems to be the best ones for me.
And I give you a few minutes to think about that before you give us an answer. The question is, how do you develop a new flavor or a new fragrance when people are not together behind a computer? Now, as I said, I gave you some time to think about that, and then hand over to Peggy with another one. Peggy.
Okay, you want Peggy to answer first? Go ahead, Peggy. By the time you get it.
Yeah, I won't be able to answer the specialist question, which is, like, you don't even really need to smell nice now because you're working from home. I mean, so I think it's a real challenge for companies like yourselves, in the beauty service. Yeah. Anyway, I just wanted to maybe share our own department's experience. Also, not the most glamorous ones. We actually locked ourselves down half a day and we cleaned up our shared drive. It was as simple as that, because we knew that we're going to have new colleagues joining us. And one of the things that we want to make sure that new colleagues are able to navigate and find information on their own is to make sure that we archive them properly. And you know how the shared drive can be, right? After a while, people start saving all sorts of things in there. So it was a housekeeping day. We had fun. We clean up the drive at the same time, and that really helped. Because after that, we actually had 5 new colleagues joining us, and they were able to self-help to the cleanup, file storage, right? The other thing that we did was we subscribed to an engagement platform, and I noted that was one of the Q&A questions. So that was another way for us to engage with one another. And through the platform, we also, it allows us to create questions, quizzes, and that's how we learned as well about our core products, because I think in my team, we often have to go out and tell people what SkillsFuture Initiatives is about, and there's a lot of technical details. So through the platform, we actually force ourselves to learn by questioning, our own programs. So those were some of the things that we've done. Of course, we took a lot of small little breaks here and there, get people to come together and just talk nonsense, and that helped in terms of fostering the bonding.
Yeah. Shisha, back to you. How do you develop
Fantastic.
A labor-intensive product, like an ingredient, like a fragrance, like a perfume? Right?
Okay.
And you are not together, and you cannot smell through the computer. Is that right? That's
yeah. So let me give you an answer to that, right? So I think.
Okay.
So when you say you cannot smell, so to start with, when we had this COVID impact, yes, if I look at the overall way of how a value chain processes, you create the fragrance or you create the flavor, then you put it into the application, and then actually together as a team, along with our clients, we really taste, smell, ideate, and modify and improvise, right? I mean, that's the normal mode of doing things. Now, what COVID did was definitely something that we had to do fast track. And we had to then really look at how can we ensure that the samples are being sent with our clients and my creative team together, how together on a call we can come together, smell together, and so on and so forth. So that's a bit of the one part of getting into pivoting into what could be an immediate reality. But to your other piece, this is where I would say that our digital ambition comes into play. So we have been investing in our digital capability throughout the value chain. So artificial intelligence, robotic process, automation, and traceability. And some of these strategic areas about how can we create remotely, how can we use some of our tools where we are able to make much more selections, including the elements of how can you smell, which is more not exactly with a big palette, is something that is enabled by our technology. So we do have Kato tools, which allows us to, in a way, not necessarily have everybody together. So what COVID has done is reiterated the importance to challenge ourselves, fast track our digital transformation, and then bring in more solutions. So yes, there is a possibility of having the creation where I don't necessarily have to have my flavorist into the room and he or she can create remotely. It can be sent to somebody in my operations firm, can be smelled, can be delivered to the customer. So that can be done. But like we said, going back to your previous question, it's about the creativity and coming together. So what we have today is great communication tools. Collaboration tools are still being worked upon, and we have found success, and we are really working more and more towards it.
Thank you. Now, Stanislav, we know there are losers and winners in a pandemic, right? Airlines obviously have been losers, restaurants and hotels as well. Others have been winners. What about Acronis? Have you been a winner of the pandemic?
That's a good question. Frankly, when all that started, we were threatened to death. We didn't know what to do. We didn't know how that would affect our revenue and our partners. And as such, and our employees started asking us, what is going to happen? Are we going to have pay cuts? Are we going to have layoffs? So what we decided to do, first of all, we decided to talk to our team openly. We said, guys, we don't know what is going to happen. I mean, you can read business magazines and you see that everybody kind of in panic. We will take a pause. We are not going to do any changes in first quarter. We will see how it goes. We do not want to have any layoffs. We do not want to have any pay cuts. If it comes to that, we will communicate in advance and we will let you know the situation. But what happened after that is that when all the people moved to the digital world, number of cyber attacks, number of cyber threats increased dramatically. And this is exactly what we do. We protect people from that. So for us, it was quite okay from business standpoint. We actually, our cloud revenue grew 100%, and we continued hiring globally. We increased our sales force, marketing workforce, and engineering workforce globally, more than 25%. And right now we are looking with quite an optimism into the future. So for us, it was okay.
Hey, Peggy, from your perspective, and with all the experience that we all gained in the past 2 years or so, what kind of investment into the people makes sense nowadays? Is there a difference pre-pandemic, after pandemic, or is it still the same rules that apply?
Thanks, Manfred. I think this is a absolutely good question. And I think at this juncture, I would like to share a study that was done by SkillsFuture Singapore and the Ministry of Trade and Industry. We looked at companies that have trained from 2010 to 2018, and we compared them with companies that have not. And what we found were very interesting results, positive. So on the whole, we've discovered that for companies that consciously invest in skills development, they've experienced an increase in revenue, and that's 0.7% over 4 years. Labor productivity has gone up by 2.2%, and that's over 2 years. And most interestingly, retention has also increased by 0.6%. I just want to say that this is a very robust study. We looked at training data from SkillsFuture. We looked at the company's data, their revenue data, their CPF, sorry, this is the salary data from the ministry. So these are all, data that's not fudged, right? It's actual data. So it's a very robust study, and I'm just gonna keep harping on this research project because it personally has given me a lot of assurance that what we are doing is the right thing. And a lot of you here as people developers, I think this is definitely music to your ears, right? That there's light at the end of the tunnel. It's just that you don't see it immediately, but the results are showing. So that's something that I want to share, and I'm happy to share that actually they have published the papers today on the MTI's website. So for those who are interested, you can always visit the website and look for the research paper. Thanks.
Fabienne, what kind of feedback have you received from members? I understand that there are about 200 plus members in SwissJam. How have they invested? Is there a new focus? Are there new priorities?
Okay, this is a tricky question.
Talking about investing in people, right?
Yeah. It is a very good question, a tricky question, because I don't have the data of 200 members. So I can give you more my own opinion, what I hear within, let's say, the HR world, an exchange of, HR leads I have within Singapore. And I would say that many companies are investing. They clearly know they have to, they want to, they get the support. They received a lot of support over the past 18 months. As you mentioned, Singapore is a smart city, is a smart country. The development in the workforce is most important. All the changes which are coming with the pandemic have an impact on the workforce, and I believe that many companies have acknowledged that and are doing a lot. If there is a shift in what to train, I believe that really depends a lot on the industry you're in. Personally, I think there's a very big demand in transferable skills / soft skills, because the pressure on the individual mentally is very high, how to adapt, etc. So I think that the transferable skills are very, very important. I feel that many companies are investing in that. Same as for leadership, as I mentioned earlier, all these things, if positive, they're not happening as such. So it requires a lot from people manager, from every line manager. When we asked before that people need to engage with the team, with the line manager, this is even more important now. So the responsibilities are bigger and request different skills. So yes, I think there was a shift towards adapting to the new now. But I couldn't say for all members. I think it depends a lot on the industry, but in general, certainly speaking for Singapore, I think companies have acknowledged and doing a lot.
Can you quickly elaborate on what you mean by transferable skills?
Yes. So with that, I mean skills you learn, like soft skills, you can use in your work environment now, but also in every other environment. Let's say active listening. If we talk about working remote, active listening is even more important. It was mentioned earlier, being in a meeting and being active in that virtual setting and listen actively without the body language, etc., is so important. And this is something we need eventually to learn, where to look, how to give the other person the feeling, the awareness you're here. So, and this is a skill which is transferable for you as an individual. You can use that in all kinds of areas. That's what I mean with the transferable skill. like active listening, just as an example.
Okay, thanks. Thanks.
Sorry, I would like to just add here, because for SSG, we actually have developed our transferable skills equivalent. We are calling it the critical core skills, and there are 18 of them. So they are grouped into 3 main areas. The first set is about how do you interact with others, and there are 6 skills there, ranging from collaboration, communication to influencing skills. And then there's one cluster of skills centered around how do you think critically, because I think increasingly, dealing with complex situations, that's actually very important. And the last group of skills pertains to staying relevant, and those would be your adaptability skills. So these are skills that we didn't, of course, come out on our own. We've consulted extensively employers. And I think the best part is that the skills are all mapped to training programs, and they are subsidized by, of course, SSG. Yeah, so again, the information is available on the website. I'm going to send the link to the Q&A chat box. Yeah, thanks.
I would appreciate. I heard correctly. These are 18 fields, 18 skills.
18 skills, soft skills, critical. We call them the critical core skills.
Okay. So is that the gold standard now, or what is that? Is that just Singapore, or you think this is the universal gold standard to save the world, or what is that?
We wish you could use that to save the world. I wanted to say right from the beginning that we look up to Switzerland a lot, in our skills policy planning and all. So no, it's not the gold standard. It doesn't save the world. It's something that we have incorporated them. So we have developed skills framework where we actually capture or we codify and we write out what the skills mean for job roles. And in the framework, there's a set of soft skills. So the soft skills, there are 18 of them, and they're applicable. They're like universal soft skills. Technical skills, of course, it varies from sector to sector, domain to domain, job role to job role. Yeah, so okay. No, Manfred, I can't promise that.
All right. Yeah, Singaporeans are sometimes humble, sometimes not. It depends on the situation. But Shisha, just a quick question and maybe a quick answer if possible. You're going to move to Switzerland soon. Now, the Swiss labor market is very positive. I mean, the employment rate has been going down. Companies are employing people like never before, it seems. It's a somehow almost miraculous development. And still, when you come to Dübendorf, Geneva, or Zurich, I don't know where your workplace will be, what kind of profiles you're looking at if you employ, let's say, younger people or middle-aged people or older people? Are there any clear guidelines, clear signs?
So I think, so yes, being Givaudan, and maybe sometimes it's like, what are the kind of profiles that we work with, right? So we do have some unique and niche profiles, which is primarily like, for example, a flavorist or a perfumer, which typically are not the ones that would be a straight pass out from a graduate school. So for such programs, we actually start in quite early from what we have as a pipeline program of a flavorist training program, where we actually, even today in Singapore, we collaborate with some of the leading institutes, NTU, SMU, and we actually have getting them quite young. And then we have our dedicated program spread over 3 years with different sets of experiences, both international as well as on technical and general management, before we can bring them into a piece of where they can start creating. So also there is that one set of specialized roles that we have. And on a similar role, we do have the management training program. Again, the idea is to really have a dedicated program which balances exposure to different departments, international and as well as the country level, and brings them to our fast tracking them more from a succession plan and a pool. So that's the 2 big flagship programs from a pipeline. Then we do have the account management, finance, the normal programs that you would see with respect to the other industries as well. So I wouldn't say it's really about your passion to make a difference. It's really about the we talked about transferable skills that you bring to the role, and we don't necessarily have to have the industry specific skills for all roles.
Okay, great, thanks for that. Now I have seen that a few questions have come up, interesting questions. Let me pick one of them to kickstart the round and maybe the interaction with our audience as well. One participant asked about the hybrid model. Now, his question or her question is, will the hybrid model become the default model for many companies? Now he explains, from the technological point of view, currently the main tools are used, Zoom, Teams, Skype, etc., or phone calls or SMS, whatever. Now, how could companies, I think very interesting question, how could companies invest in the future technologies in order to make the hybrid model an even more successful and an even more interesting model? Maybe we give the floor to our technical expert, right? From Acronis. What do you think? What's going on? I mean, are there any new? Is Facebook coming up with something new or?
Well, actually, from technological point of view, I think we have pretty much all the tools. They will become better. We will have like virtual avatars and things like that. But you see, I want to go back to the beginning of this webinar, answering this question. Traditionally, when we talk about investing into the people and investing into the team, we talk about trainings, helping people to get new skills. But we are not talking about what you called, or your friend called, body language, which is essentially a feedback loop between colleagues, employer and employee, which is equally important for both the company and the employee. Especially in creative industries, in high-tech industry, when you need to understand that you grow, that what you propose, what you do is actually appreciated and help the company to create innovative products. And what happened with pandemic is that this feedback loop, which was here by the default in the form of this body language, meetings between colleagues, it disappeared. And the major challenge for companies, for HR departments, for management, is to build for hybrid mode such a feedback loop. I mean, you can do it by simple steps like giving positive encouragement to your colleagues. You can have more online meetings. You can have hybrid meetings when you have your whole team at least one day all together in the office and things like that. But the company need to think it through and try, by using try and errors, understand how actually it can keep the people engaged. Because right now, when we have a lot of virtual work, one of the problems is that if I do not receive a feedback, if I do not feel myself part of the team, should I really look for a job in Singapore? I can easily work for US, UK, or whatever other company. And all of a sudden, for many of the companies, their labor market became global. I mean, in IT industry, for example, in Singapore right now, there is a deficit of about 60,000 for jobs. And in FACOM, graduates annually is about 2,800. So essentially, you need 30 years to fill this deficit. And all of a sudden, for your graduates, there is a competition from all over the world. So you need to build this feedback loop, this body language, to keep people engaged and to feel themselves part of the team.
That's amazing. Did you?
You're on mute.
Sorry. Just to clarify, did you mention 16,000 or 60,000?
60.
Wow, that's amazing.
It's for Peggy can confirm because this is estimation of Singapore government.
Okay, thanks. Another interesting question, and maybe Fabienne, you should listen carefully as well because you're the expert here as well, and Shija, of course, as well. People are saying that the pandemic has brought HR from a just or only supporting function into the center of an organization, even at the strategic level. Now, is that true or not? Does that apply to Asia as well? Just to bring in my view, in previous years, 2 decades ago, we were talking about the Personalabteilung in Swiss companies, in German. And the Personalabteilung normally consisted of 2 people, right? Maybe 3. Today, there's an HR department counting around 15 to 20 people. Now, Fabienne, maybe a quick answer from your side. Has HR become more strategic? Is HR now becoming, the gray authority within a company?
I wouldn't say so. Personally, I think that's HR has since many years or should have a strategic role. So this is not brought up by the pandemic. So I believe the companies who have an HR who's playing a strategic role are anyway playing a different game. That's my personal thought. Has it accelerated during the pandemic? Most likely, if taken up properly. All what was being discussed, I think, can be HR initiatives, ideally are. I like very much what Stan just said about the feedback. And I can just give you the exact example. We are right now this week implementing 3 new feedback channels. This is exactly what's happening. And I believe if you have the right people in your company who take care of that, if it's HR or management, I think it's just like, yeah. So is it an accelerator for good HR? Yes.
Maybe I want to add in there. Is that okay?
Sure.
So
sure.
I totally resonate with what Fabienne mentioned. I don't think HR becoming strategic or not strategic is anything related to from a COVID situation or standpoint. I think it's really an evolution for the organization, whichever organization they are part of. I would say we are quite blessed that, or rather at Givaudan, it's been always a strategic partner from the beginning. Having said that, what has changed as part of or COVID, or what were the additional demands was, COVID definitely forced us to review quickly some of the business models and to really see how can we design, develop, and deliver some of the things in a quick traction mode, right? So that definitely required a lot more close partnering to ensure we are able to bring the solutions to life, adapting to the realities of the world in a crisis mode. So I think so it was really about the whole team coming together, making it work. And there you would see a lot more of HR bringing in not only from an element of how can the business be supported, but also the piece of the role of the managers, the role of the team, and how we need to balance business continuity with employee well-being. So I think that way, the role, I wouldn't say changed, but it has been definitely a big point of discussion to see how can we balance and try to maintain both without losing a focus. And HR has definitely played a very, very important role there.
I see. Very interesting follow-up question on this. What are the main challenges for HR and company leaders since the pandemic? It's a simple question, but it's actually quite complex, right? Who wants to answer? What are the main challenges for HR people and company leaders?
So maybe I could get in started. So as an organization, on one end, we've been quite blessed. We've been into the essential sector. So overall, related to what Stan said, I don't think our business had been, we had an up and down, but overall, we've been doing well. So what does that mean? I think the question too is like, what have been some of the challenges is to really, how do we ensure we are able to, from a leader standpoint, balance the optimism with the realism, if I can say so, right? So as leaders, there is an element of, I need to have my compassionate side because everybody is going through this crisis without necessarily being prepared. We are having unfortunate situations where we are losing our team members, somebody in the family circle. So how do we keep that compassionate part, but without losing the focus on some of the areas of business deliverables and outcomes? So I think that's been one of the biggest challenge of how this leader has to switch many hats, which also translates to the role of the manager. I mean, today I'm really looking at as a manager saying, okay, you need to ensure the performance, you need to have the career conversation, you need to be the one whom the employees can come back to and in a way be your first point of contact when he or she is facing a challenge and stress. So in a way, what I'm saying is all these is in a way asking us to do a lot more differently than what we are trained or used to. And that's the biggest challenge. To how do you build a capability for tomorrow, a future that you cannot fully define, and how can you ensure that you are able to fast track? That's been some of the big challenges. When I go back to Stan's point of saying, yes, it's a fatigue. On one end, we are having a lot of interactions through calls and town halls, very, very high level of periodicity. So one end, it's good, but sometimes you also have employees coming back and saying that, I need some space, good that, so it's about really saying, how do we balance that? I don't think we've got the perfect solution there, but what is the right level of intimacy? What is the right level of it's literally reaching out to their living rooms, but ensuring that they have their space. And so it's about work reaching out to the family and family being part of your work, but how do you still create the balance? So I do see those are some of the big challenges. And I do see as a leadership model, this will have far-fetching impact because the leadership models of future, at least the way we see it in Givaudan, our leadership senses, our leadership model is going to be refined and revisited to really work in tandem with what may come up as a reality, which is dealing with ambiguity, the change capability. All this, a lot more is expected from the new age leader versus what we were maybe in past. So I do see a lot of impacts and areas that we need to find more answers as we go through.
Well, there was another question. How do we deal with the ones who cannot cope with the new environment? How we deal with the ones that we are losing because they get off the track. They are maybe less disciplined, less focused. And any experience in that field? There must have been.
Well,
go ahead.
Okay. I mean, definitely, when you have everybody in office, you at least can see that people are in office, so they're supposedly doing something useful, right? But when you start working from home, definitely for some people, it's not so easy because of shortage of space, kids playing just behind your back or being less disciplined. So what you can do, first of all, you can help the person to have normal environment. Like even in a small apartment, you can have like 3 square meters set up for work environment with some nice background behind your back. You can help people to get additional monitors, printers, laptops, so they have everything in place. You can help them like with noise reduction headsets and things like that. And what is also very important is that you kind of should have early alarm when person is dropping off from normal activity. You can do that. I don't like spying on people. I don't want to see what they are doing and things like that. But you can do that by monitoring normal activity, like how many calls, if it's a salesperson, being placed, how many tickets in your CRM system or help desk system is being processed, how many code is created by engineer. Then you will have alarms well before the person is kind of completely disorganized and completely demotivated. And you can start working with that person, like talking to him, engaging him, encouraging him, and something like that.
I see. Do we have room for one more question? Fabienne, Clarissa, what's your advice? Or should we try to wrap it up?
Can I just ask for 2 minutes? Just 2 minutes.
Okay, Peggy,
just
good,
to answer.
good.
Yeah, I'm
I was
mindful
hoping. I was hoping for that.
Yeah. So to answer to your question, I think I will answer from a more macro perspective. I wouldn't say these are companies that fall through the cracks. I mean, we as government, we don't have to deal with, P&L, but it doesn't mean that we are void of empathy. Survivability is a very real issue even till today. So I just want to share that what my team has done is we've sort of created what we call the SkillsFuture Queen Bee program. So in this Queen Bee program, we worked with esteemed companies. They're typically your MNCs, Acronis and Givaudan, type of companies. And we know that you do have a network that you work very closely with. These are either your supply chain or, they're just companies in your value chain, and you know them. So we actually work with Queen Bee companies and we co-create solutions. We actually walk the ground. We try and understand what the company's challenges are. And these are typically your smaller companies, your SMEs. SSG actually provides a funding package to the Queen Bees, help them to hire sort of like a learning and development person. And this person functions like a shared service. And the person goes around understanding the needs of the companies, and then, formulate this training plan and help them to develop the skills of their workforce. And of course, at the same time, we will then recommend the relevant initiatives so that you don't have to really pay too much of your out of pocket, even though you train. And I've shared this during our sort of rehearsal, right? That we have so many subsidy schemes that the more you train, the more you save, because there's actually a net surplus after you factor in all the different various subsidies. And as a company on your own, you wouldn't know how to navigate. But so we understand all these challenges. We worked with, big brothers like yourselves, and then we go to the network together and really identify those that are still motivated and still want to help, and they still want to develop their workforce. And we will, work out the training plan together. So that's something that we have done. And we have found it to be very effective because a lot of the SMEs, they actually feedback to say that they are quite appreciative that there's this resource person that they can go to now for help. Yeah, 2 minutes.
Thank you. Fabienne, you want to say something?
Yes. I actually just would like to finish up. I believe we owe it to the audience to be at least, within the 50 minutes over. But Peggy, thank you very much for mentioning it. I believe it's a very important topic, and I'm very much looking forward to hear more about that. Having said that, we are having 2 more webinars to come, which are going to focus on the what can be done and how it can be done, where I hope we can learn more about these initiatives from you, Peggy. Here you can see the QR code. No, I can't see it. Maybe you can see it, but certainly you get our mailings to register for the next webinar about what people skills programs are required in organizations. And I hope Peggy will share more than as well as other panelists. With that, I would like to thank you all from my side, representing SwissGem. Very much appreciate. I learned a lot. I hope the audience learned a lot as well. And it was a pleasure to have that talk. And also, Manfred, thank you very much for being the moderator of today's session.
Can I say?
Absolutely.
I bypassed one question that is very interesting. Has the pandemic, have all the lockdowns increased fluctuations within companies? No. There are some statistics about that, and it looks like, in fact, it has indeed increased fluctuations, despite the fact that job insecurity has increased. Now, shouldn't we take this as an encouragement to invest into people? Because we wanna keep the best people, right? And normally, the best people jumping board, jumping the ship if something is not right. So isn't that another reason just to invest into people? Now, this is not a conclusion of this, or not a very original conclusion of this webinar, but still, we hope that we have highlighted some important aspects beyond body language as well, beyond investment in goods. I would like to thank all of you for the participation. I see that we have basically maintained the level of participation, and I hope that many of you, not only the panelists, but as well, of course, the participants, join the other sessions on this topic that is developing. The pandemic is not over, and certainly the topic about skills and future development has they are worth following up sessions, right? So any last word from you, Fabienne? And if not, I would like to thank all of you, in particular the audience, with these interesting questions. Apologies that we couldn't answer all of them. And then a very warm thank you to all the participants, to the ladies and the gentlemen from Acronis. Hope to see you soon, and stay safe.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks a
Thank
lot.
you very much.
Bye-bye.